Thank you so much for having me today. My name is Jennifer Potter. I am mom to 3 boys with Alström syndrome, Chad, Matthew, and Nolan. And I was asked to share a little bit about our journey with our amazing, resilient, and very active boys. This is my first slide, and it is all about Chad. Chad is 17 years old. He is our most affected son in terms of Alström symptoms. And I have some of them listed on the screen here. He is presented with almost all of the typical symptoms, and then some of the more unusual ones as well. Chad is blind and has been from a very young age. He went into probably kindergarten with no vision at all. He isn't hearing impaired. He wears hearing aid. His impairment has seemed to stabilize over time. We've not seen further progression. He had dilated cardiomyopathy in infancy at about 6 months old and was recently in severe heart failure, which I'll share a little bit more about in a few minutes. He had seizures, which is pretty uncommon, but I do know I've talked to a couple of the newer parents that are experiencing seizures with their children. He had absence, myoclonic, and drop seizures. All are controlled at this point with medication, thank goodness. He was diagnosed with Crohn's disease, so that's another unusual characteristic. He does have the type 2 diabetes. He has kidney and liver dysfunction. The kidneys were good up until recently. They were impacted by the heart failure. He does suffer from high cholesterol and triglycerides, high triglycerides, and he has some scoliosis. But there is so much more to Chad than the syndrome and all of these symptoms that I just listed. Like I said, he's 17. He's a junior in Seneca High School. He plays the drum in Seneca's marching band. It's pretty remarkable. His participation in band is what he's most passionate about. He's a member of the chess club. He goes to competitions. He participates in the social recreation programs as well as a buddies club at school. He loves his family, his friends, and his smile just lights up my world. And I'll describe the pictures that I have on this slide. You can see that smile that I'm talking about. Chad is holding 2 lobsters in his hand. I think that's a New Year's Eve tradition. The next picture, he is playing the drum on the football field. He's sledding in the next picture. There was quite a bit of snow last year. And then this is a recent one of him carving a pumpkin. My next slide is all about Matthew. He is our middle son. Matthew currently is probably the least affected in terms of Alström symptoms. He, like Chad, is blind and was blind from a very young age. He is overweight. However, he doesn't have type 2 diabetes, which has always been a mystery to me, as both of his brothers do have that. He had pretty significant scoliosis. He was braced for 2 years, and thank goodness that brace did stop the curvature of his spine. There were conversations early on that we may have to have back surgery. He also has some respiratory issues and liver dysfunction. There's really not much to do in terms of the liver dysfunction. It's just diet and exercise. And again, despite those symptoms that Matthew has, he is an active 13-year-old young man. He is in 8th grade. He loves learning. He's excited about his transition to high school next year. He plays the saxophone in the school band. He and I practice many evenings. He loves to read and he loves basketball. He knows every fact about basketball, and his favorite team is the Philadelphia 76ers. He is my funny guy, and his laugh is simply contagious. So just a couple pictures of Matthew that I have on this slide. Very active, loves to be outside. He's playing baseball using a tee. It's absolutely amazing how he hits that ball off into the woods, and we have to go and retrieve them. I have a picture of him on a tricycle. When they were younger, it was much easier to find tricycles for them to ride, a little bit more challenging when they got to adult size, but we were able to get Matthew one last fall, and he really does enjoy riding the bike. Typically I'm walking or running next to him, but he's getting pretty fast. So that presents a little bit of a challenge, but he really does enjoy that. The third picture is Matthew's smile, and the last one, he is jumping into the pool. You don't see the water, but he is jumping into the pool. I'm pretty excited about that. And last but not least, our baby, who's not such a baby anymore, Nolan. Nolan is 10. He's also less affected in terms of symptoms when compared to Chad. I would say that he has more of the classic Alström symptoms. He is blind, he is hearing impaired. I don't know that he has hearing aids in any of these pictures. He doesn't wear them as much as his brother does, but he wears them in school during the day. He does have the type 2 diabetes. We test his sugars twice daily, and he's on, we manage it with medication as well as diet. He is slightly overweight and does have some liver dysfunction. But Nolan, as you can tell, those of you that can see the pictures, he is just full of life. He loves school. He loves spending time with his brothers and his friends. He's very active. Like his oldest brother, he plays the drum in the 5th grade band. And he's involved in various clubs at school. And I'll just describe the pictures on this slide. There's one of Nolan, he's jumping in a trampoline. Another, he was sledding with his dad and is in the snow, laying almost on his belly, laughing. A picture of him jumping into the pool in the summer, and then a picture of Nolan. He's very proud of his pumpkin. We used Mr. Potato Head pieces to create really whatever he wanted to create, and he's got quite a silly looking pumpkin there. So moving on to 2021, this was probably the most challenging year we have faced, having 3 boys with Alström syndrome thus far. In February, my husband and I started to notice some changes in Chad. They were minor changes, really. At first, he was cold all the time. He was tired, sleeping more than normal, and then loss of appetite. And I really wasn't sure what it was. So I consulted with both his cardiac and his GI doctors related to the Crohn's disease. And they both suggested that we bring him into Children's Hospital of Philadelphia through the emergency room. When we did so on March 3rd of this year, he was admitted and he stayed there for 111 days. And there were many, many ups and downs. That could be a whole presentation for a different day. But ultimately, Chad was in severe heart failure. So the dilated cardiomyopathy that he had in infancy did present again in the teenage years. It's funny, once we got past 13, I thought we were free and clear, but that unfortunately was not the case. He was not responsive to the medications the way he was when he was an infant. So in infancy, he had medication and we were fine. We eventually came off most of the meds. But this time there was just no change in the performance of his heart. And ultimately it was determined that he needed some additional support. And that was in the form of what's called an LVAD, a left ventricular assist device. It is a heart pump that they put on the bottom of your left ventricle, and it helps your heart pump the blood to the rest of your body. He underwent open heart surgery. And unfortunately, because of his weak state, so this is the picture I have here, is shortly after his surgery, he was unable to get off of the breathing tube on his own. There were 5 failed extubations. And ultimately it was decided that he would need a tracheostomy. And that was the next right step to help move us forward to Chad's rehabilitation. The great thing about this story is Chad is now home. He's doing amazing. His trach was removed. He was decannulated at the end of October. He's back in school. He is back in marching band, and his recovery is nothing short of a miracle. The next step now, we have a heart pump. So what's after that? Typically a heart pump is not a long-term solution. It is to get you to that next step. So we have undergone the heart transplant evaluation, and Chad has been approved for transplant. And we plan to list him in the new year. I did want to just share a little bit about rehab. Rehab was a really, really hard work. Hard work for Chad and hard work for mom and dad. I mean, he was very sick And he basically had to learn to walk and learn to eat and learn to do all those things that he had done when he was an infant. He had physical therapy, occupational therapy, recreational therapy, and speech and feeding and therapy every day, 6 days a week, starting bright and early through the end of the day. It was very intense, but Chad was up for the challenge. His goal was to come home, to be with his family, to go back to school, to be with his friends, and to play in the marching band in the fall of 2021, which I can't even believe that he was able to accomplish. And he has really met all of his goals. In fact, really exceeded most of them. And I've included a few pictures here. These were some of the better days. There were definitely very tough days in therapy, but there's a picture of Chad riding a tricycle in PT, a picture of him painting a canvas in his recreational therapy, a picture of him flipping a very large object in physical therapy, and he's there with his occupational therapist with an exercise ball. In a couple of these pictures, you can see actually the last two was when he was still required ventilation. So he had the tubing coming from his trach to the ventilator. But then the second one in was, and the first one, his trach is actually capped. Let's see. And these are just a couple pictures of the boys. Wanted to share them together. The large picture here is the three boys after Chad came home. And I don't know if you can see, but he's got his thumbs up. He's doing good. This bag that he has on him, that is the heart pump. There is this white wire, it's called the drive line, and it goes in through his belly. And he has very large batteries in that pack. Early on, when we started talking about how we were going to support Chad, I was very nervous about him accepting and dealing with the VAD bag and batteries. And he told me the other day, he said, "Oh, Mom, it's just like hearing aids. It's no big deal." So he has adapted, and it's just part of his body now. And he's just so resilient and amazing. But all boys, all three smiling in this picture. The younger brothers are very, very happy to have their older brother back. Also, you can see in all of these, Matthew is quite a bit taller. So our 13-year-old is quite a bit taller than Chad. So that's interesting and a little bit different for Alström. Most of our kids are shorter stature. Then I have a picture of all three boys at Halloween. Chad is dressed as a ghost. You can't see his VAD bag, but he does have it on there, and did not have the trach at that time. It came out right before Halloween. Matthew is a stormtrooper from Star Wars, and Nolan is a firefighter. And then there's also a picture of the three of them about to jump in the pool. This was pre-heart failure for Chad. It was the summer of 2020, but they've always been very close and have a really special relationship. A couple of our family pictures. The top one up here, my husband, myself, and the three boys. That was our first outing after coming home from the hospital. You can see Chad's trach and his bag. There's a picture of us apple picking. One of us in the hospital. It was it was tough. The 162 days in the hospital, there was only one visit that the brothers got to see Chad, that Matthew and Nolan were able to come because it was during COVID and there were no visitors, only Mom and Dad during most of that stay. So one of our therapists snuck him outside. We had a therapy session in front of CHOP, and we brought Chad, Matthew and Nolan up to see him. So that was very special. And then this picture of our family was just prior to Chad getting sick. The November before, we had pictures done as a family, and he looks very healthy there. And we really had no idea what was coming in the next couple months. So just some key takeaways from my experience as being a mom of three Alström boys, and certainly the experience we just had with Chad. You as the parent or as the individual with Alström syndrome, you are the expert. If you think something's wrong, it probably is, and don't hesitate to get help. And I'm glad that I reached out when I did and didn't just think, oh, he's a 17-year-old boy and that's why he's tired, or something like that. So if you think something's wrong, reach out to your doctors, get the help that you need. Embrace every single day, even the hard ones. I think the hard ones make us stronger. We certainly have come out of this collectively as a family stronger. Be a constant, steadfast advocate for your child in all situations, in all things. We did not leave his side during that time that he was in the hospital. And it was really important. He couldn't advocate for himself. We've always taught him that he has to advocate for himself, but he didn't have a voice in that situation. So we were there every day advocating for him, asking the tough questions, and we were able to provide valuable information to the doctors throughout that process. And certainly in terms of school, the same thing. Schooling has been, from day one, I've been very involved. I attend every meeting in person, and really made school step up and provide what the boys need to get their education in the best means possible. And I agree 100% with what Marina said about the Braille. That is so critically important. All three boys read Braille, and it is beautiful that they are able to do so. Our children can really accomplish anything. We've always told our boys that you can accomplish anything that your typical sighted peers can do. It may look a little different, but they are really and truly able to do just about anything. And then take advantage of the resources that are available to you. And Marina spoke about this as well, about sharing. We are so lucky to have these organizations to support us, Alström Global, Alström Syndrome International, and we're so lucky to have each other because we are the experts. So while you're maybe going through something and looking for advice, there's probably a parent out there that can provide some insight. So I encourage people to reach out to each other. And I'm always happy to talk to any of the moms or dads out there. I think that's the end of my presentation. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them now or at a later date.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Jennifer. All the messages in the chat box are not questions, but kind of congratulations on how truly inspirational you and your family are, and with such kind of resilience and just quite kind of joy to lots of love sent to you. So unless anybody has any questions, you've said about people contacting you. I know you're very active on Facebook. Yeah,
we are. Yep.
Okay, so that's kind of one channel to contact you. Again, we can share emails where people are happy to do so. And thank you very much for some of those very thoughtful kind of takeaways, particularly around if you think something's wrong with your child, it probably is. The kind of trust in your instincts with that. And I think many families, will talk about that. You become your experts. You are the experts by experience, both as individuals, as adults with Alström, but also mum, dads, and other caregivers. Okay. So lovely question. I'll just ask you the one question that's come up, which is, did you have this attitude from the beginning, or is it during the way, your journey, that you've acquired it? That's a lovely question.
So great question. And this attitude has evolved. I think that we've always been positive, but the beginning, when you get that diagnosis, it is hard. And to go through it 3 times, it was almost unreal. But they are the most amazing young men, and they teach us, my husband and I, every single day, something new. It's quite miraculous. So it's developed over the journey. Absolutely.
Okay, perfect. A perfect finish to it. Thank you very much for sharing all of that, Jennifer.
Thank you.